Welcome back to the Songwriter's Greenroom podcast. I'm your host, John Andrew Suchocki. For this episode, let's explore what is perhaps the most mysterious aspect of songwriting, which is how to come up with the music, specifically that catchy melody. Are songs created or are they discovered? Are you building something unique and wonderful, or are you digging and digging until you find it, like a nugget of gold? Or does the gold find you? To me, it often feels like I'll stumble onto it, often in my dreams, sometimes just by noodling on the guitar or the piano. There's a feel, a sensation, a color. You hold on to it as best you can. It's certainly ephemeral. To me, that's discovery. But then you start crafting it together. And that crafting is a skill that can be honed over your lifetime. That's my experience. This discovery part is hard to explain. I know there are many pathways to the discovery of melodies. It's one of the first questions I ask of fellow songwriters when we meet. But I think it's fair for me here to explain how it happens for myself, at least to kickstart the conversation. I want to start with a story about my dear father. He told me once that he heard that there are people who can actually hear music in their heads. He wondered if perhaps I was one of those people. My jaw dropped. My first response, though I didn't say this to him, was, there are people who don't? And one of them is my dad? Of course, we all have our strengths, and of course, that's why when we humans work together, we are a geological force on this planet. I have no doubt of that. So our brains, as similar as they are, can be wired quite differently. It's almost as if nature designed it that way, on purpose. I would tell you that there is music nearly always running through my head, which is why I rather dislike background music. I'll take that background music and I'll just start listening to it directly. It's distracting. And do you realize how often they play A Horse with No Name in the grocery store? I know. Shopping without Muzak in the background would be nasty. But to me, it's also distracting. Foreground music, yeah, bring it on. Background music, it can drive me crazy. So my conclusion is that my audio cortex, it's easily stimulated. And if there's nothing there, it'll make up stuff to fill the void. Regarding melodies, when the conditions are right, it just happens. And I think I've gotten better at it. That is, I see myself as a late bloomer. The melodies that come to me now, I think, are much more catchy than they were in my earlier years. But it's never been something I try hard at. In fact, most of these melodies come to me as I'm dreaming early in the morning. I wake up, there it is. I've learned to hum the tune into my phone before it vanishes, and vanish it would otherwise. An audiographic memory, I have not. Quite the opposite. But my smartphone is audiographic. Ooh. The song Johnny Nash is a good example. I woke up with a strong feel and rhythm overlaid by this powerful melody. There was this long city courtyard I was magically flying over, heading in some direction that looked like a cliff. That was the essence of the song, visually. For another song, I remember dreaming about this door that opened up, and there were these singers in 4-part harmony singing, "Open arms, open arms." And in my dream, I realized that it was just a recording of a song that I had recently produced, but it was the first time I was hearing it fully produced. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good. At which point I woke up realizing that all of the above was a dream, but the song, Open Arms, was still in my head. So I pulled out my trusty phone, trying not to wake up my wife, who understands when I'm whispering the weirdest sounds, it's just another thing. I mean, in my head, it sounds really beautiful, but typically the recording itself, in reality, without the context, it's pretty embarrassing. But later, that recording, that early morning recording, clues me right back into the beauty, which I can then flesh out at some later point. The idea of Open Arms, that song, it remains buried somewhere in my phone. It just didn't turn out to be anything much. Johnny Nash, by contrast, evolved into this. White collar crimes never serve time when God is money and the money is fine. In every cell you'll hear a story about a past where all was cast like a pair of dice. No paradise can last when the best you can do is purgatory. You gotta give him credit for having played so long. If only he could let it be, but he was way too strong. My point, there's this warmth and beauty at first. What I'm hearing in my head feels so attractive and catchy. It's gotta be the nucleus of a great song. But my experience is that many times it just fizzles away, like that Open Arms song. When I'm fully awake or listening to it sometime later, I'm like, what was I thinking? But then, enough times, it's actually solid. I'll work out the chords and come up with related melodies. My rule of thumb is that if I can come up with 3 good sounding parts, then it qualifies as a new song worth pursuing. I thought I'd share with you a recent example. Let me set the stage. It's 6 a.m, and I wake up from this dream in which there's this song, and usually it's someone else singing it. Me, I'm just listening and enjoying it. And then I wake up and I'm like, what the? I reach for my phone. I sneak into the bedroom closet, not to wake up Tracy, and then I start whispering. And whispering a melody, I find, is a challenge. This one is dated September 28th, 2024. Here's that moment of me in the closet. Hard to make out, but it's there. The words I'm singing are, your love will only last me one more hour of your time. Silly, but that's what I woke up with, and it's enough to clue me into the phrasing and the melody. The phrasing is important. It's how long you hold the words and all. If you lose that phrasing, you've lost what makes the hook the hook. Lyrically, your love was changed to this love, which makes more sense. And here's the end result, the chorus. This love will only last us one more hour, then we'll be moving on. The fear that we could break it and never make it, to have it makes it gone. You hold my hand and let me be the one to sweep you through this dream. I'm letting go, no goodbye. The door we stood by faded into black. Remember those 3 steps: inspiration, arrangement, and production? Now you know what they sound like. That whisper was a result of inspiration, step one, not very glamorous, right? The polished recording was a result of step three. And in between was the lyrics and the arrangement, which I call step two. Which of these steps is most important? Answer, the one you happen to be doing at the time. You can't have 2 and 3 if you don't have a 1 to begin with. And if it's just 1, then, well, it sounds pretty terrible. Regarding step 1, it really feels like it's coming not from me, but from someone or somewhere else. That's what it feels like. Someone whom, for me, I tend to meet in my dreams or sometimes when I'm just in a particular mood and in a quiet space. But wherever you meet them, as I've been saying, it first arrives as a flavor, as a sixth sense that there's something there.
This love will only last us one more hour, then we'll be moving on. The fear that we could break it and never make it, to have it makes it gone. You hold my hand and let me be the one to sweep you through this dream. And letting go, no goodbye, the door we stood by faded into black.
In a way, you just stop thinking. You let go, and that's when you can let it in. You let go, and you can let it take you. And that's when it appears. Something from nothing. And there's the melody. Mysterious, for sure. It's not addition and subtraction. In my experience, it's more like a shortcut to some advanced calculus, working on the subconscious level. It's weird. And this is not just me, because I know society has actually come up with a name for this someone or this somewhere else. They put it in the plural. Starts with the Muses. Oh, you were inspired by the Muses, they will say. Or, just get in touch with your muses, and that melody will come to you. And that, of course, is where we get the word music. Having an easily stimulated audio cortex, being in touch with one's muses. Scientifically, they might be the same. But I would say the latter is more descriptive of the experience. I should tell you that sometimes the original muse falls to second place to an even more powerful muse that arises as I'm working it all out. That original melody, then it becomes the bridge, or it moves to a verse, or sometimes the all-important lead guitar solo. In the end, for me, the most catchy melody I reserve for the chorus, which sometimes works well at the beginning of the song as a sort of teaser or for setting the stage. And that's how I find melodies. We'll hear the perspective of other songwriters in future episodes. But by now, you'll have gathered that for my songwriting, the music always comes first. I know that for many songwriters, they actually start with the lyrics, which is hard for me to comprehend. To me, it's much easier to come up with a melody first. I let the muses do that for me. And then there's the brute sweat and tears of finding the perfect lyrics to match. To me, writing lyrics is work, work, work. It's hard with a capital H. To reverse that, to come up with the lyrics first, then create a melody to match? I'm like, huh? Broadway-type people tell me that Broadway-type songs are most always done lyrics first. Then I saw this YouTube video once of a young Elton John explaining at the piano how he used Taupin's lyrics of Tiny Dancer to come up with the music of that now famous song. The Muses speak to him through the lyrics. And while he's wide awake, whoa! But again, this presses the point. We're all the same, yet we're also different. The same and different. We'll each have our own way of tapping into those muses, and I suppose there must be muses of lyrics, too. And the library of human song expands ever deeper into the universe. Lastly, I think I should address arrangements, in that I actually don't have much to say about the arrangement of a song, which I understand to be the order in which the various parts are arranged, put together. I'll admit here and now to being rather traditional: verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, instrumental, chorus, song done, with variations as called for by the song, averaging 3 minutes, 30 seconds in length. This means, of course, I lean heavily into the formula for popular music. Fun fact, many of us are conditioned to this formula, which is why it's called popular music. That includes myself. Whatever. So I pretty much stick to those rules. I like boundaries. Within boundaries, I can get more creative. Of course, each genre of music has its own boundaries, its own formula or set of rules. Hip-hop, jazz, punk, indie, prog, ambient, classical, and so on. And of course, rules are meant to be bent, if not broken. Thus, the number of genres and subgenres continue to grow exponentially. If anything, you know this, music is ever flowing, a vehicle for our, as my mother would like to say, creative transformation. For every mood or culture, there's music to match. They are the muses, feeding our collective spirit. There's so much to audio. And on that note, that's it for this amusing episode. As always, thank you for listening, and stay in tune. Yeah, sure, why not?
In all this silence, I hear you calling. Shades of gray, they blur the night. Over you, I just keep falling. I'm reaching out from dark to light. When every moment just returns, we try to grow, we try to learn. We travel past the moon, then lose our way. Skin to bone, a heart of scars, off the edge we tumble down. This we own, we've come this far, just to make it to the ground. I'm working hard to solve this equation, with two unknowns always on the fly. Speeding past for another abrasion. Will we catch or will we slide? As gravity it pulls us near, there's nothing more I'd rather hear than the whisper of your thoughts inside of mine. heart of scars, off the edge we've tumbled down. This we owe, we've come this far, just to make it to the ground. It's only now we've grown aware, as we revolve, how much we share. When every moment just returns, we try to grow, we try to learn, we travel past the moon and lose our way. As gravity, it pulls us near, there's nothing more I'd rather hear than the whisper of your thoughts inside of mine. Skin to bone, a heart of scars, off the edge we've tumbled down. This we owe, we've come this far, just to make it to the ground.